right about the time people can continue to filter in, but we're back, baby, with another episode of Midweek with Max. Thank you all for attending. Yes, he's using the big boy mic, Joshua. That's why he's loud. but it's clear, at least, which is great. So without any further ado, we're going to turn it over to Hemi co-founder Max Sanchez and get this rolling. Max, take it away.
Cool. Thanks, everyone, for attending another week of our AMAs. And not seeing too many questions right now, so while people keep filtering in and post their questions, I'll just give a quick tech update. So we're doing a bunch of work on the Bitcoin tunnel system. So we're working with the auditors this week to get that fully audited in preparation for mainnet. We also plan to do a network upgrade with some TBC improvements and deploy that Bitcoin tunnel contract on Testnet. My goal is by the end of this week, but realistically, next week. But would like to get that up in the public testnet and running for people to test. And we'll be adding some points around trying out different aspects of the Bitcoin tunnel system. So you'll be able to at least try depositing and withdrawing and get points for that. We may do points also for people to run their own vaults. Or maybe introduce that later on in the testing cycle, so stay tuned for that information. We're also doing a bunch of stuff behind the scenes on infrastructure, and so we've set up a lot of our mainnet server infrastructure on a new cloud provider, and we're going through and doing a bunch of testing on that. So far, it's looking a lot better than the previous infrastructure provider that we were using and that we were still using for testnet, and we're going to start migrating most of our testnet stuff over to that new infrastructure provider as well. So stay tuned for updates on that. And I think those are the big things. Phil, do you want to add anything from any updates from the marketing side?
I would love to, but I am told I am, and I quote, loud AF. So am I coming through okay?
You're coming through more than okay.
I think you sound
Really?
cool AF. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, great. Yeah, so a couple of things that I think is going to be worth getting excited about. One is we have an aggressive business development presence at DevCon this week over in Bangkok. Unfortunately, I myself was not able to attend, but we've got 3 of our folks out there, and trust me, I've seen their calendars. They are all over the place over there. Just to give you a sense of what DevCon looks like unofficially, is that the list of side events is well over 900. That's a lot of ground to cover. That's a lot of that's a lot of like shooting to score, I guess is the best way to look at it. In terms of, okay, with that many out there, how do you prioritize? And the way we prioritize is, partners both current and desired, and that's what the business development team is doing out there. You'll see 2 additional collaboration integration announcements this week. I don't want to speak out of turn, but it's we got 2 announcements that we're anticipating, maybe even a third, and we are head down, ears back, setting everything up for mainnet. So that includes getting past partners in line, making sure they're ready to participate. That includes re-engaging with all the investors that you heard about in mid-September. Wow, it's already that long ago. Making sure they know what we're up to. On the media front, you've probably seen that there's been a lot of activity, particularly in the podcast space. We anticipate that Bad Crypto is going to be coming out anytime now, as well as Cointelegraph Agenda. And you might have seen the 2-parter from the folks at Crypto News. If you haven't already seen that, please give that a go. and we're continuing to book those at a reasonable clip. The only thing I would ask of this community here is, we actually love the fact that everybody piles in here. I love the fact that we have a few regulars for the Midweek with Max series, and I think that's awesome. But also, I'd love for us to take a lot more of this energy and make it more perhaps externally facing. So, I know you guys follow us on Twitter. Click like, click retweet or re-X or whatever we call it these days, because the whole world's watching. I'd have to say that there's a lot of attention on us right now in a lot of influential circles, and these are circles that may or may not spend a lot of time in here, but they do spend a lot of time on Twitter and that sort of thing. And I just want to make sure that the energy that we all have here is properly reflected externally. But nevertheless, I guess I'll end this by saying that people are picking up what we're putting down. They're seeing our vision for interoperability. They're seeing our vision for security. They're seeing our vision for decentralization, and they're going yes, 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 yes. So I've very often been describing us as the network for what's next, and because I think it's more than crypto. I think we have a lot to say in terms of particularly the burgeoning AI discussion and that sort of thing. I guess I'll end this with sometime this week, we are going to be publishing a research report with the good folks at DL News Research. So we anticipate that hitting the street again this week. We're just dotting I's, crossing T's, taking that one last look at technical diagrams. But this will launch Hemi's first analyst relations output, and so that's also a milestone for us as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to our trusty MC, Rick, and we'll get to questions.
Thank you, sir. We do have a couple questions on deck. Before we proceed, Max, did you want to make that announcement that we talked about earlier?
Do you want to save it to the end, build a little suspense?
I like suspense. Let's do that. All right, so we'll just dive right into questions. So the first one, are there any rewards for running the pop miner?
Yep, there are. They're not showing up in Absent yet, so we're still working on the logic for how exactly we're going to assign pop points, but you will get points for pop mining that you're doing. And just to recap some of the discussions we've had over the last few weeks on here for how that'll work, basically will be our points crediting system is going to compare the pop transactions that you did to what other people were able to do in the same day. And so the amount of points you receive will be relative to, or will be based on your performance relative to the performance of other regular pop miners who had the same, infrastructure limitations and whatnot that you were experiencing. And so if there's a day where there's tons of infrastructure load and the average person was only able to do 3 pop transactions, if you did your 3 pop transactions, you'll get most of the points that are available for pop mining in that day. Whereas if another day the average person was able to do, 10, then that'll be the kind of the watermark, the benchmark for how everyone is assigned points. So we are trying to do the points assignment in a way that is, fair to users who are just running the regular pop miner, using the infrastructure we provide, not using third-party scripts. There will be some additional points if you were running a pop miner and doing custom stuff. Maybe you were running even your own parts of the Hemi stack in order to, like your own BFG instance, to be able to broadcast Bitcoin transactions yourself, or you made modifications to the pop miner. So there will be some additional points for people who were able to do that and reach really high pop mining benchmarks, but the majority of the points you'll be able to earn as long as you were within the pack of regular pop mining users for a particular day. And those will also show up on the pop stats dashboard. So for anyone who's not aware, let me send the link here. We have this dashboard here that's available. So if you're wondering if your pop miner is working, you can go here and enter your either the Bitcoin address or the equivalent Ethereum address that you're pop mining with, and you'll be able to see your pop transaction mining history. And also on the front page, you can see the overall global stats, which show how many people are doing pop transactions a day, the number of transactions that are being done total, the number of fees people are paying, stuff like that. So if you go there and you see your address and you see pop transactions going through and keystones getting mined, you are good to go. And once we start crediting points, we will also show them on this dashboard. So in Absinthe, you'll see the actual results of doing the pop mining and the actual points that are credited. But then you'll be able to go to this dashboard and see details for where those actually came from, what the per day pop mining payout breakdown was. And also, we've gotten questions in the past about if there's an issue with using multiple addresses. So a lot of people use one address for doing, on L2 activities like bridging and swapping and deploying capsules, and used a different address for pop mining. That's totally fine. And in fact, the way that we encourage people to do it. And so there will be a claim process later on where you can link multiple addresses to one identity, so to speak, and it'll combine the points between all those addresses up to the maximum that a single address could have earned per day. So you're not going to get extra points because you use different addresses, but if you did use different addresses for different parts of the points program, that's fine, and they'll all be combined together.
Awesome. All right, we are moving on to our Q4 questions. Let's start with, I forgot how to talk for a second. Sorry, everyone. Do you expect there to be a big announcement in Q4?
Yes. Just for anyone unaware, the current plan is to launch mainnet in Q4. So we're still on track and moving towards that. We're not giving any specific date in Q4, and there's still a lot of loose ends that have to land. Nowadays launching a blockchain is more than just spinning up a couple nodes and creating a Genesis block, especially in the Ethereum ecosystem. You have to onboard a bunch of partners. So on day one, there's stuff for people to actually use. And so there's a lot of additional added complexity. And some of those are external dependencies. So we're not giving any exact dates, but we are definitely targeting Q4.
All right,
in the next 6 weeks.
I have a follow-up to that, which may be redundant, but I'm going to ask anyway. I found out that the project is scheduled to launch its mainnet in Q4, as you just addressed, along with many other updates. But with so many ongoing issues, assuming in testnet, do you think the plan will still stay on schedule?
Yep, most of the issues we're having on testnet are testnet-specific issues. So, for example, we're having problems with we have 100,000 people or 100,000 connections trying to do pop mining, which we have not been able to. Every time we scale out the infrastructure to support more people doing pop mining, more people show up and do more pop mining. And so people are having issues with doing, all mining every keystone every day. But that is a purely testnet problem because in mainnet, we will not have nearly that kind of load on the pop mining servers. And we'll also have ways for people to run their own BFG node that they can connect their pop miner to if they want as well. So most of the issues the other issue is the Bitcoin testnet 3 network has difficulty bombs, which means there's times where the difficulty gets reset in an edge case that was supposed to help the network progress if nobody was mining, but it ended up basically being a vulnerability of sorts on the network. And that is not a behavior that we'll experience in mainnet, but that's been causing a lot of issues as well for, when Bitcoin blocks get created 100 or 200 times faster than protocols built to use things about Bitcoin are built to do, they tend to break. And that's everything from, our own pop payouts indexer to, the mempool.space API we're using for the faucet. And that is a uniquely testnet 3 problem. So yes, we are still on track for a Q4 mainnet release.
All right, sounds good. I'm assuming that the answer is the same as last week, but in the entrance, interest. Why can I not talk today? I'm sorry, everyone. I don't know what the hell's happening. But in the interest of transparency, can we expect any VBK news?
You can. I don't have an exact date yet, but coming soon, and probably before or around the mainnet public announcement.
Awesome. I do not have any questions teed up currently. So, hold on. Here we go. All right. Okay. I want to know if the tasks for regular users will remain the same as swapping, creating capsules, and bridging. Can we do other stages?
For testnet, we will be adding more stuff to the points program, which at a minimum will be trying out the Bitcoin tunnel that we're going to be deploying soon. We may also get some partners who deploy stuff on testnet, pre-mainnet for people to play around with, but no promises there, no specific details. We'll see which partners want to do a testnet deployment, and we can do something around those. For mainnet, the tasks will be a lot different. So testnet's about creating transaction volume, load testing things, finding edge cases in protocols, just creating transactions and making sure that they propagate and get confirmed correctly. Whereas mainnet is going to be about the economic value of transactions people are doing. So stuff like providing liquidity to, DEXs and lending protocols, or providing liquidity to cross-chain transfer protocols, or staking in different protocols. So the mainnet tasks will be largely around economic activity. There may be some things that are, still there as like just do something that engages with Hemi in some way and it doesn't involve, real world economic value. But the mainnet points program, when we get to that, will be significantly different than the testnet points program.
Sounds good. It would not be a midweek with Max if we did not speak about the faucet. So let's talk about that real quick. What about manual permissions for people who can't claim the faucet? Is that in the cards?
I'm not sure what you mean by manual permissions. In general, anything that requires either our team or our moderators to do, manual stuff per user just does not scale. We did a lot of that early on with anyone who was here for the very beginning of our incentivized testnet. We were giving away the onboarding capsule manually as a way to attempt to anti-sybil it. And, that was back when we had, I don't know, 10, 20,000 people on Discord, and we could not keep up with hundreds of requests that were coming in per day for manually sending people the onboarding capsules. So anything that involves us or the moderators looking at your account and seeing if you look like a real user, and deciding based on some heuristics whether to send you some testnet Bitcoin or testnet Ethereum or whatever, is just not something that we can support because of the amount of resources it requires. But that being said, again, no updates on the faucet since last week, but we are still thinking about stuff we can do to improve it. And again, if anyone has additional suggestions, we're certainly open to it. We've done a lot of updates to the faucet. We've added a check that you can only use the faucet if you link a Twitter account that I think has to have more than 10 followers and be above a certain age. People are still getting around that. And so I floated the idea of doing something around addresses that have been actively engaged in pop mining. We get some sort of faucet priority. So if you're requesting, additional TBTC to an address that isn't actually engaging in pop mining versus, just a random TBTC address that people are using to whatever they're claiming TBTC for and not using it, going and selling it or whatever. So that could be an interesting mechanic. We are still exploring ways to improve it, but no concrete updates to offer this week on that.
All right, here's one for you. Can you share any more information about the upcoming Bitcoin tunnel?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I'll do this in a couple parts. So for anyone who's not familiar with one of the really interesting features of Hemi that we're bringing to market that nobody else is doing, it's called HVM, or the Hemi Virtual Machine, and it's basically a Bitcoin node embedded in a EVM environment. So it lets smart contracts talk directly to the Bitcoin blockchain, and they can look at data in Bitcoin State Machine that you can't normally look at in a smart contract. And so our entire Bitcoin tunnel system is built on top of that HVM Bitcoin awareness technology. And it's basically going to be the first, I was going to say demo app. It's not a demo app. It's a real production application, but the first code example of how to actually use HVM to do something useful. So that we're excited about open sourcing that code so people can start using that as an example and seeing how HVM and the Bitcoin kit work. Anyone who's interested in developing other Bitcoin aware applications, that'll be a great example for them to follow. But also talking about the specifics of how the Bitcoin tunnel system works. It's going to come in a couple different versions, and it's going to evolve over time as Hemi's technology evolves, as we add more features to HVM, as stuff like BitVM becomes practical. And so the initial version of the tunnel that we're going to launch on Testnet is going to use over collateralized vaults. So basically, anyone can create a Bitcoin address, they can register as a vault operator, and they post collateral in the form of a ERC20 token that's accepted by the protocol as a collateral token. And then they can accept deposits from anyone on the Bitcoin chain up to a certain collateralization threshold. So, for example, if you had $1,000 of USDC, you might be able to handle up to $700 worth of Bitcoin deposits and into your Bitcoin custodianship address that you create a vault around. And so anyone could choose which vault they want to deposit into. And no matter what you deposit into, you'll mint the same BTC, which is our on Hemi representation of underlying Bitcoin assets as an ERC20 token, which then you can go use in DeFi protocols the same way you can use USDC or wrapped ETH or any other ERC20. And then the way that the tunnel system is built, that vault custodianship mechanism can evolve over time. So one of the things coming either mainnet launch day or shortly thereafter will be using Symbiotic and Swell for economic security. So instead of you having to directly post an ERC20 as collateral, which is not the most economically efficient, we'll be able to leverage operators from Swell and the assets that they have that are Bitcoin denominated, that are staked in the Symbiotic protocol. We'll be able to use that as economic security for vaults. So, $10 million worth of Bitcoin related assets, be that wrapped Bitcoin, threshold Bitcoin, whatever is supported by the Swell SBTC LST. Those operators would be able to contribute that economic security and then run a vault that could, the mechanics will work similarly, but they're using that shared economic security that's a lot more capital efficient because we're not asking people to put up collateral directly for just a single Bitcoin vault. They're bringing in shared security that is shared with other protocols as well. And then the eventual evolution of that will be to a BitVM based tunneling system. And so the way that will work is at a high level, basically people will be able to create BitVM vaults, which are used for accepting very large deposits of Bitcoin in a very capital efficient manner. And then those will be secured against misbehavior with basically a one event trust model. And so as long as one of the people who participate in the setup protocol are honest, nobody can steal funds from the BitVM vault. And so that really high threshold of security lets us secure those with a lot less economic collateral relative to the amount of deposits that BitVM vault's accepting. And the cool thing is the way we designed the Bitcoin tunnel system, we can rotate out those custodianship mechanisms under the hood without creating new versions of HBTC. So we're not going to have an issue where, people tunnel over Bitcoin using the first custodianship mechanism and get, HBTC dot over collateralized vault, and then we launch BitVM vaults later, and that's HBTC dot BitVM the tunnel system is going to be able to swap out those custodianship mechanisms and migrate assets between those different custodianship systems. So we can do live in-place upgrades of how the actual underlying custodianship works while keeping the same single HBTC instance on the network. And if you're interested in more of the tech details, stay tuned because we will be releasing a lot more information about that soon.
Speaking of tech details and security, here's another one for you. How does proof of proof help secure the network?
Good question. So POP is a additive consensus protocol. So usually when people talk about consensus protocols like proof of work or proof of stake, it combines creating the block with securing the block. And so those two roles are like when you look at Bitcoin, for example, a Bitcoin miner chooses what transactions get into the block. They're basically the sequencer, to use that metaphor that we're familiar with in the Ethereum landscape. But also the mining of that block gives it security because somebody wants to attack that block would have to spend that same amount of proof of work computing power to create an alternative block. Generally, statistically speaking. On Ethereum, same thing where you have validators who have staked Ethereum. They're able to create a block, and then by creating a block, they're voting for that block and securing it in the consensus protocol. And with proof of proof, POP lays on top of other consensus protocols and reinforces them with Bitcoin security. So you could take proof of work, proof of stake, proof of space-time like Chia uses, whatever, and add proof of proof on top of it to inherit Bitcoin security, to add an additional layer of security on top of the native consensus security you already get from the block creation process. And so the way it works on Hemi is basically the exact value on mainnet is still TBD, but on testnet, every 25 Hemi blocks is a keystone. And that keystone, POP miners publish that to Bitcoin. And then that publication is used for fork resolution. So if there's ever a fork on the Hemi network and there's two competing chains, their publications of each of those chains' keystones into Bitcoin is compared against each other to determine a POP publication score. And the chain with the higher score wins. Not based on the number of publications, but on the timeliness of those publications. And so what that means is if you get a keystone that's POP mined to Bitcoin, and then 9 Bitcoin blocks elapse where no other competing keystone at that height is published to Bitcoin, that keystone and all the blocks before it in the Hemi chain reach Bitcoin finality, meaning that you would have to go and attack Bitcoin, do a 51% attack Bitcoin to retroactively insert proofs of a different Hemi chain in order for that chain to be accepted by fork resolution. In the event that there's two chains that are both getting published to Bitcoin, so say the quote unquote legitimate chain, and then some miner who has enough consensus power in Hemi to create an alternate chain is also doing POP mining in lockstep, that'll be publicly visible on Bitcoin. And any services that are waiting for Bitcoin finality will be able to observe those publications on the Bitcoin blockchain and then observe when one of those chains stops getting published and the wave collapses and one of the chains becomes canonical and achieves Bitcoin finality.
Awesome. Thank you for the explanation. What are the next updates for the Hemi pilot program?
Good question. So adding more stuff to the points program. So like I mentioned, the Bitcoin tunnel, possibly some stuff the partners are deploying on testnet. We'll see which partners deploy on testnet and whether they make sense for incentivizing in the points program. Obviously, you can't really do much with an oracle directly. So, it has to be a protocol that, end users can interact with. But any partners who deploy and it makes sense for users to be able to interact with it and test it, we'll add some points around those as well. Also, not really part of I'll say this first. We're also going to be implementing an anti-Sybil mechanism. And so we have an in-house protocol that we're going to be using for basically proof of unique humanhood. So we're going to be rolling that out on testnet relatively soon, so people will be able to engage with that and basically get ready for the actual claim process when the testnet points program ends. And I think we're also going to be giving additional points to people who validate through that. But I'll have to double check. Don't quote me on that. And in addition to that, we're also working on, and this is the part that's not quite the points program, but also working on some stuff to start engaging developers more broadly. So part of that's going to be a bunch of documentation and tutorials around HVM we're going to be releasing in the coming weeks for anyone who wants to get started building on that. And we'll also be doing more programs around people who want to build interesting applications on Hemi. We'll be at some point in the near future announcing plans for some sort of retro PGF-like funding for projects for anyone who wants to just go build something and see if you can attract interest and utilization of it. Obviously, the actual qualifications for those protocols will be on mainnet, not on testnet. But anyone who wants to get started on that and start playing around on testnet, we could also talk about possibly doing something around points to get people to test the protocol. So a lot of things in the works. Stay tuned. But if you're looking at just the point side of it, there will be more tasks coming for people to be able to earn points with as well.
I believe some of this may have been covered, but just in the interest of posterity, the next question is, do you plan to give points for deploying smart contracts? And if so, how would it be calculated?
So I think we've done some points around deploying specific smart contracts. I think those might have been through Galaxy or sorry, through Zealy with some manual verification.
Yeah, I can happen on this. So up until this point, there had been some things, depending on when you hopped in. Early on, we had some tasks for doing a Hello World deployment, and that cycles in and out of Zealy. So sometimes we have it up, sometimes we don't, but there's always something for deploying contracts. But moving forward, what we'll be doing is something a little bit different, where we'll be basically having that same sort of format. Only it will automatically verify. We don't have to worry about the kind of manual nature of it, and there's not much for you to do. So assuming that you follow the instructions to deploy contract A, as long as the parameters are within what we recommend, it will automatically pick up and credit for you. So we actually just completed the code for that. We're working on testing it as we speak. That will allow for much more autonomous and automatic kind of dev tasking, because up to this point on Zealy, it just requires so much manual oversight, which is why anytime a ticket opens, people ask, hey, I did something on Zealy 3 weeks ago, I still haven't gotten points. Yeah, it takes so long, and there's only 2 of us that are vetting those, and it does require kind of development level vetting. So moving forward with this new process, it will be much more automated, if not fully automated, and much easier for users and us alike. So you should be able to see your points quicker, much more frictionless experience, and it allows us to kind of perform some add-ons, which I'll save for a later date to kind of talk about, but we'll be able to do much more with that. So for right now, if you load Zealy, it cycles on and off every other week usually, but there's probably a task there at the moment. It was yesterday for deploying a contract, and then moving forward, we'll move that to kind of its own place where we'll have more developer-centric tasking. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Thanks for jumping in on that, John.
Okay, so this next one, there's 2 questions that are fairly similar, at least thematically. One was addressed to Max, one was addressed to Phil. So I'm going to kind of combine them and open it to the panel at large. So the questions are, what kind of international marketing is Hemi doing, especially as more countries are driving project demand and vision? And compounded with that, I'd add something from one of our community moderators that said, have you also heard about IBW, Indian Blockchain Week Conference, and would we have a presence there?
I'll leave that to Phil to answer. He's the expert on events.
Yeah, sure. I'll start with, we have no current plans to do India Blockchain Week, but we also are building out our international footprint. I mean, most certainly our community moderator group is from everywhere but the United States, which is actually really, really cool to see. But also we are looking at what the KOL footprint might look like internationally as well. But I will say that I'm Batman is speaking, dear Lord. Very funny. But yeah, no, suffice it to say that, we, again, are, pretty much everybody who's approached us has been ex-US. But, at the same time, as we built out our KOL program, we want to make sure that we hit key countries, key geographies that are that are not only very tech centric and crypto centric, but also very Bitcoin centric too. I see the Stacey Muir post that's put up here as an example, because we've all seen the price. It's a theme that certainly any Bitcoin layer 2 network would want to attach itself to. And I think the energy around Bitcoin is, I think it's more than, I think it'd be simplistic to say it's the presidential election. I think in the US, I do think that people are waking up to A, Bitcoin is great for money, and B, Bitcoin can be so much more than money, and that's why Hemi's here. So
awesome. Thanks for that, Phil.
We do not have any questions on deck. It's eerily quiet. So do we want to cover the announcement, maybe?
Yeah, let's do it. So I've heard that the winner of the Hemi Community Naming Contest has been decided. And the winner is Hemigos or Hemigas. And that was proposed by one Veleron. And I believe we're, correct me if I'm wrong, doing something. We're going to post that on Twitter and give one Veleron a call out on Twitter as well.
Yep, we're going to be doing a formal announcement. We're going to announce it on Twitter, just so our community now has an official name. We are all Hemigos and Hemigas, everyone. So that's awesome. And we're going to be contacting you as well to make sure you get your points. And also, if you're willing to, we can get a little snippet of where you came up with the name if you'd like to be in the next newsletter.
By the way, everyone on the Hemi core team absolutely loves it. So we were secretly hoping that one would win for quite a while.
There were
I'm just waiting for the. I'm waiting for the T-shirt myself.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we got to do some
I think that maybe that should be the next contest. Okay, now that we got a name, can somebody please design the T-shirt?
I think that's a really good call. Is that something you guys would want to see? Like a T-shirt design contest for Amigos, Amigas? Because if so, we can absolutely get that started soon. I don't know why
I would absolutely be down with that.
I'm so into that. There were so many entries and so many good names. There were a few that absolutely cracked me up to the point of I was cry laughing. It was Hemisenberg, based on the description alone, that I think said, "I'm not in danger, Skylar. I am the danger." Ellipses to other projects, which I thought was one of the funniest things I've ever read. So as always, you guys are slaying it. Thank you so much.
I was particularly into that one because I have been stopped at airports. I kid you not. When I was perhaps a little thinner and my facial hair was a little different. I have been stopped in airports and once by an American Airlines gate agent. And they always they would look at me. It's like, dude, man, has anybody ever told you look like Heisenberg? I don't see it myself. But yeah, I got a kick out of that because of that history. I've literally been stopped at airports and approached with that.
Absolutely see it.
So some of the Hem and M Okay, I got to give it up for that one. That was pretty good. I'm afraid we just couldn't do hemolepsy. Just no. Sorry. Hemolorians. All right. Okay. Some Star Wars fans here.
Hemitex was a good
Hemitopia.
one.
Which one?
Hemitex, like architect, but Hemitex.
Oh, yeah. That was a good one. Hemi Hub, Hemi Stars. I'm just kind of looking down the list.
I upvoted a lot of these personally. I thought there were a lot of good choices. Hemigos
Heminauts. I actually like that one. The only hesitation was that back in our history, Block spun off a yield aggregation service called Vesper, and that community called themselves the Vespernauts. So that was my only hesitation with that one, is that we already had a community kind of within the broader portfolio that had knots in the name.
Emians was a good one.
Yeah, all right.
Didn't forget you, Avi. Don't worry.
Hemi Sapiens. Oh, yeah, that was cute. I liked that one. Hemi Nation. Hemigens. Okay, Degens, Hemigens. I like that. But yeah, no. I mean, Hemigos and Hemigas. I mean that's kind of the that's the winner. Yeah, I mean, if there's T-shirts that we can make around that, I think we can. I think we can run a special edition or something like that. Sure.
Honestly, I'm thinking like Monday we launch a Let's Design a Hemigo shirt.
Oh, totally.
So yeah. So anyone who was asking, are there contests coming up? Yes, on Monday. We'll get all the details to you soon. Do we have any further questions? Any mascot design contest for the Hemi network? That's not a bad idea either. I mean,
mascot design, that's okay. I'm pro that. We've had some history there before. If you look at all the like iconic mascots in like open source and that sort of thing, like the Linux penguin, for example, right? I mean, something that is very easy to reproduce, that people would be proud to have, like on a T-shirt or what the hell, a tattoo. Yeah, no, I'd be up for a contest around that too. Yeah,
I'm kind of with ICAP on this. He said Orange Cat is not the Hemi mascot. It kind of is in a weird way.
kind of. Yeah. Okay.
But that's not to say we couldn't explore others. But certainly.
Oh, Josh. Okay, wait a minute. Josh reminded us we do have Globy.
Oh, we do have Globy. All right.
Yes,
so
Tux. The penguin does have a name, Josh. It is Tux. Yes, I do know this.
TBD on this one. We're gonna go with the T-shirt contest first.
For sure.
And for mascot, I just want to give a disclaimer that if we do launch that, there's going to be very fine print that says, "Do not just submit Orange Pepe," because that doesn't count.
It's beyond doesn't count. It's like disqualifying.
Yeah, it's instant disqualification and potential 24-hour timeout. Well, I'm not seeing. Oh, hold on. Sorry. Just a suggestion about the faucet. Back to the faucet. Can you use the Gitcoin passport for verification?
That could be interesting. I'd have to see if there's an easy way to make that work with the Discord bot, but yeah, that's a good idea. We'll add it to the list. And
I believe that might be a wrap. Before I turn it back to Max, though, I would like to make a special announcement about next week's Midweek with Max. We'll be joined by our other Hemi co-founder, Jeff Garzik. Same bat time, same bat channel. So you will have access to the dynamic duo co-founders of Hemi next week in a very special episode of Midweek with Max. And with that,
and you guys heard it first. And please do spread the word among your friends. There are a lot of crypto communities out there. Only one of them is going to give you access to an original Bitcoin core dev. So this is the place to do that. And so definitely tell your friends, tell them to put it on their calendars, tell them to show up, because you don't get a lot of opportunities like this, and we want to make sure that this opportunity is extended to the Hemigos and the Hemigas in our audience here.
absolutely. Oh, I apologize. We do have one more question that I saw before we wrap up. My apologies on that, Bazi. Concerning Galaxy and Zeely, I haven't been able to participate due to some issues connecting my wallet. I hope that doesn't affect me in any way, because every day I'm swapping and creating capsules weekly. So I guess by participating, would there be an effect of not being able to connect said wallet?
I'm not super sure about how the Galaxy specific program works. So if there's things you're doing there and you're not able to connect your wallet, I'm not sure if you'd be able to get credited for points. But the things you mentioned, like doing swaps, creating capsules, all that is based on your EOA. And so as long as you have the private keys for that wallet, you'll be able to later go through our anti-Sybil mechanism and link that wallet and get your points. So you don't need to be able to connect anything to Galaxy to claim points for pop mining, tunneling. Tunneling's no longer rewarded, but if you did tunneling in the past, swapping, deploying capsules, anything on chain, that'll all be just associated with your EOA directly.
I hope that answers your question, sir. Oh, the problem is from Zeely. It's very possible that it is. But with that, we're going to wrap up this session of Midweek with Max. So I just want to thank you all for attending and remind you all, if you can, I'm going to sound like an absolute YouTuber right now, so apologies for that. But slam those subscribe buttons, like, share, do all the things on our social handles, X, and also YouTube. We'd like to get some more traction there, as we're posting a lot of cool content. We're trying to integrate it into Discord as much as possible, but we also don't want to spam you guys because we're putting up so many videos. So if you can, show some love on the other external channels as well. I also want to thank all of our moderators. I'm going to try to say their names because Josh has in the past, so I will attempt to. Ajit, Alex, Avi, Creator, Foxstar, Funky Sasquatch, Hadu, Koki, Lyco, No Tears, Yahoos, and YYG. I hope I didn't butcher them as badly as Josh. Take that, Josh. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Max and Phil for close. Thank you all.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Huge shout out to our moderators as usual. And looking forward to seeing everyone next week. And stay tuned for updates on the Bitcoin tunnel and being able to test that out on Testnet, and some HVM developer focus documentation, tutorials, and so on that we'll be releasing soon.
Yep.
All right.
Oh, thanks a lot, everybody, from the top of my head and the bottom of my heart. We just love the fact that all of you guys pile in here. So many thanks, and we're gonna get after it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much,
See you all
everyone.
next week for our special episode.
Yep. Tell your friends.
We'll see you in Discord. Slam those subscribe buttons, baby. Take care, all.